It's nice to finally meet you, man. I've been a fan from a distance for a long time,
Nice to meet you too.
but I'm really happy that we get a chance to do it, albeit in this kind of Q zone, this kind of quarantine isolation thing we're all getting too normalized by, I think.
I know. Good to meet you, Zane.
Yeah, you too. Congratulations. That's that tone we were looking for. That's that voice, unmistakable. As soon as you stretch out into a space that inspires you, no one sounds like you. It's crazy. And this song really is another perfect example of that. How did you know? How did you know this was something that you were going to write on and it was going to be yours, this piece of music, this vibe?
It's just when you've been away from music for such a long time, I mean, it just felt like something was missing in my life. I just wanted to get back to it. I just felt inspired. I felt like it was time to, tell my story through music and get back at it. And it's just such a great time, such a great journey.
I always wonder with artists who are so intrinsically linked to the need to create, what space feels like when you're not creating, and how the time flies like that, how it goes 8 years, between projects, and I know life carries on, but how, I suppose before we even talk about the structure of what you do, how it feels.
Well, I would have to say that music doesn't really stop. I'm always singing. I'm always creating, just not in the studio, not on a certain project. You know what I mean? But like I said, I'm always singing, and then I'm always finding ways to satisfy that hunger to just um, to be passionate about something. I'm acting, of course, creating with my daughter, raising her, and just living life. But to just really sit down and focus on a project, that's when it's something else. It's something serious, and where you think about all the other things that you've done and try to do something that's more evolved and reinvent yourself. And that's where it gets you start to really think about it and try to put something together, put a body of work together that you can be proud of.
It's easy to get lost in that. I mean, you start sitting there and kind of trying to sort of play comparative data with your own head, and sort of what I've done to where I want to go can be a crazy situation. And how did you find, what were some of the important moments that helped you create a clearing?
Well, for me, I felt like I wanted to just be as honest as possible with this new project. I wanted to approach this project like if this was my last chance, if this was my last shot at creating music, like what would this project be about? What would it sound like? Would I just, bear it all? Would I, you know, just tell my story as deep as I could tell it? Um, and I wanted to, of course, stay true to R&B, but at the same time, um, go outside of the box. So I wanted to, work with someone that could understand that, and that's why I was able to connect and have that chemistry with DJ Camper, and we just had such a great chemistry. And then also with LaShawn Daniels, who I've worked with for many years, who's no longer with us, but he was such a crucial part, such a you know an instrument in how I was able to push forward and writing and producing with this music.
It must have been really tough. It's tough to lose somebody at that moment. Someone who's been there for you at such a crucial points in your career to help you get to a place where you can be at your most honest and vulnerable, and then not be able to share in the reward with that person must have been really tough.
Yeah, it's still really tough. It's still really tough. But I just pray, that I was able to make him proud. And I went with a lot of the songs that he stamped and that he felt positive about. But I try to, you know, hear his voice in my mind and in my heart, and hopefully I can carry out, his legacy and do the things that he would approve of.
Yours is such a fascinating story. Your life story is it's one for the books. I tell you, you know
You
that
think
early
so?
success. Yeah, of course. Look, I mean, where you came from, achieving that kind of early success, recognizing the gift that God gave you, making the most of it, somehow coming out
Thank
the
you.
other end of that, continuing to build a foundation of a career, going through challenge to triumph, and now somehow finding yourself at a point being a mom and ready to tell your story. Can I ask you how old your daughter is?
My daughter's 18.
So she's old enough to know the story,
Yeah,
and
she knows the story.
she knows the story. And I wonder how that kind of impacts your writing when you have a teenager. I have two. How you have a
You
teenager and
do.
you know that you know the stories, you can't hide away from them anymore. You got to tell
You
them straight
can't.
up, because that's the lesson you
Yeah.
have to teach your kids, is be honest. And I wonder,
Yeah.
how what the balance was between fact and fear in this process. Because it's
Oh, wow.
scary doing that.
It is very scary because, as a parent, you lead by example, and, what you do affects them, because they're watching you, and that's how you teach, is by what you do. But at the same time, you don't want to be dishonest. You want to, you're not perfect. You have to, be open with them so they can understand that, through the things that you do, through the trials and the errors of life, you learn and you grow and you overcome. And one of the beautiful things that I believe that, I'm happy to share with my daughter is that I was able to go through a lot of the things that I've gone through, but I was able to overcome them as well. I could look back on those things and truly say that I've learned, and I've come out, on the other side. There's really light at the at the end of the tunnel. So she can see that, and she's also proud of that as well. And just seeing her go through her trials and her errors in life, she can look to me and say, "Well, my mom came through a lot. I can come through it as well." So
What was the most challenging and emotional subject to face down on this project? What was the one that really, you really needed to find that courage, to find the words to put it out there?
it was my struggle with heartbreak and finding my self love. Um, that was difficult for me. Just always looking for love in someone else and needing someone else to fill um, a void that I needed to feel for myself. And it could sound cliche, but it's really not. It was really something that I really needed to face within myself, is to find that true love within me, because looking for it in other people and looking for it in relationships,
Success, ambition, all the things you try to put it into.
you won't find it there. You won't find it there at all. And it was a long road. It took so many years for me to realize that. But thank God for music, because without music, um, I feel like I could journal about it. I could, get counseling on it. All of that helps, but music is like, for me to really, use music as a way to heal. And it really helped me discover that, along with everything else that I did to work through it.
Well, when did you realize that, if you can look back on it now, because every story needs to be traced back as closely as possible in order to understand the work that needs to be done. And I wonder, like, as a young person, if you can kind of put it into context as to when you started to realize that the love you were seeking was a distorted form of love, based on that kind of what your success and talent gets you versus something that's real, that can be harvested within and shared with others. It's a genuine gift. That is a transient gift. It's a beautiful one. It's like a bump of adrenaline, but it's transient. When did you, looking back on it, what fractured there that made you realize that was the love you were seeking?
Fame and, you know, everybody else's opinion, and, all of that, it's not, it's not real, and validation from every person in your life, that only that only lasts for so long. You need your own voice to outweigh everyone else's voice. Um, and like I said, when you can sit with yourself, when you can, really sit in your own solitude, and really basically, get in touch with your higher you, the better part of yourself. um, that becomes the voice that rings true. That becomes the voice that you listen to. That still small voice within yourself, that becomes the most important voice. And when you get in touch with that, that voice becomes louder and louder and louder.
We're playing music as well that you've handpicked, and I realize now that there's so many really relevant touch points in this playlist that refer to the conversation we've already started. I mean, we just kicked things off. I had to rearrange a few things. I hope you don't mind. Took a few liberties based on what we're doing in real time right now, and I had to kick things off with the first ever single, and because it just felt like we were taking it back to that moment where it's like the whole journey began. And who was Brandy back then? Like, when you realize that you had caught lightning in a bottle at such a young age, it's how was that, looking back on that now with the benefit of hindsight and wisdom? What was that feeling like, and who was the child really that was experiencing that success?
Oh my God, I was having so much fun. Just like my dreams were just coming true, like that. It was like, is this really happening? I went from, being in high school one semester and then on TV the next. It's like I just couldn't believe what was happening to me. I was just having the time of my life. Um, to, be at Taco Bell and to hear your song on the radio. It's like, what's really going on? And it's it was like a really just a beautiful time for me.
Yeah, but you couldn't have seen what was coming, right? I mean, you just couldn't.
I mean, you dreamt it. I dreamt it. I wanted to be, everywhere I could be. I was a kid that listened to the radio all the time and, wanted to be popular.
What was driving that ambition, though, Brandy, to be popular? What is the ambition that drives you when your peers are out there just playing sports, doing the math, trying to get to a different point in life to do other things? And your ambition, your fire in you is to go and become a household name around the world and to start this crazy journey. What is it that prompts that, do you think, looking back on it?
Well, singing was all I had going for me. That's the only thing that I really believed in, that I had, and that was fueled by just always performing in church and, always being around my dad who encouraged me to, to sing because that was it for me, and then just, I was always motivated by, people around me that said, that I wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't make it. I was bullied a lot as well. So that encouraged me to prove people wrong. So that was a lot
That's
of,
common.
yeah, that was a lot of my, that was my drive.
Brandy, I'm looking at this list of songs that you've given us, and amongst some really important touch points in your career, you've chosen some really poignant songs by other artists as well. And I want to talk about, this is gonna be a tough one straight in, but someone who didn't get through the other side of it and was not able to get to a point where they could find a way out was Whitney. And you've chosen a couple of Whitney Houston songs on this playlist, and it must resonate with you, somebody who I know you idolized and admired and got to know, that came out the other side of that, and it just couldn't make it.
Yeah, she had a very, very tough time, especially in the end of her life. But what she was able to not only accomplish, but what she was able to um, do and experience with her voice um, is unmatched. I mean, and I really wish that that's what she could be remembered for more so than anything, is how she was able to touch us with her voice.
Let's go. Well, yeah, go there. Tell us a story about like a memory, because that's how we do it. You replace all of the stuff that becomes the short-lived tale. You replace it with the long tail, which is the talent and the human, with stories. So tell us a really great story.
A really great story. Wow. Um, well, a lot of my really great stories are all on YouTube. When I first met her, like I couldn't believe that she was even a real person. I saw her, I ran away from her, and I was screaming, and I just I just couldn't believe it. And she embraced me and she asked me about, just how this, how I was taking everything. And I just remember just having a conversation with her and just her being like a really down to earth person. And immediately she just made me feel comfortable to just be myself. And we just had so many great moments like that. I remember being in the studio with her and just singing with her and feeling like, I'm singing with my idol. I never would have thought that. I just wanted to meet her. I never thought I would be able to just be in the studio and just to share a mic with her. Of course, she was just breathtaking.
She represents so much to the world in terms of, I wouldn't even say what is possible, because what Whitney Houston accomplished, to your point, is not possible for anybody else. Like, that is just, it's God's gift. But also what she represented to female artists, and then what she represented to Black female artists at the time, and the ability of what was possible. As someone who took that inspiration and followed to some degree in her footsteps and was inspired to take risks and be ambitious, can you elaborate on that, what it meant to be a Black female artist at the time watching Whitney Houston come out of the shadows?
I mean, to see someone that looked like you, like it, I don't even think I can describe it. I can say this. She never looked like someone. She never represented like that it was impossible. It always felt like what she did and what she accomplished was possible. That was the magic of Whitney Houston. Even though it was impossible what she did, it always felt like, you
It was
know,
inspiring.
yeah, it was inspiring. And that was what was so amazing about her, is that as huge as she was, as big as she was, as many people as she reached, it always felt like you can do it too. Just do, just take the steps that I took, even though it was impossible. But
She benefited and suffered at the hands of one of modern life's most interesting and intense opportunities, which is fame. The idea of fame and what it's become, and now it's at the hands of everybody, and you can become infamous for an hour or a minute. It's crazy. She really was one of the modern life's first uber famous human beings, and you yourself have been through that. We talked a bit about it from a young age. Making mistakes, going through challenges in life, things that happen. Life happens, but when it happens to you when you're famous, like how do you even deal with that? I mean, it happens to people all the time, but it happens to them in private. And I wonder, like, what your feelings about fame are now that you are at a point in your life where things seem balanced. At least to me, listening to the music and our conversation, how does fame even how does it even equate to balance?
well, I've come through a lot, when it comes to fame. I've endured a lot when it's come to fame. Um, I've been through my struggles with that. Um, I've been I've been blessed to come out the other side of it. Um, but it's a very dangerous thing. It's very scary. Um, I don't like fame, Zane. I don't like it at all. Um, I think that it should be rules to it. I think that I'm like my daughter. She wants to follow in my footsteps in terms of music and getting out there. Like I'm really afraid for her to do that. Very overprotective, because fame can it could kill you. It really can if you're not careful. So
And I want to talk a little bit about I have to talk about it because it was a life-changing moment. What's your relationship with The Boy Is Mine now? What is your relationship with that song? How's that song changed shape for you?
oh my God, that's the biggest song of my entire career. I think, um, what an amazing just record. I think when I first heard the record with Rodney Jerkins, I couldn't believe to hear, the instruments that he used in that song. I was blown away by it. I knew that it, just with the topic of the song, it needed Monica on it. I thought that, she just brought such an amazing flavor, amazing swag to the song. And, it every time I hear it, it sounds fresh and new to this day. I love it
That
still.
duet is a game-changing moment. That duet was like two young female artists in a competitive landscape coming together to
Mm-hmm.
share the success. That changed the game. People forget that. That was one of the first of its kind.
I believe so, and I want to say this. I After that duet, I remember Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey then doing a duet. I always say that it was because of The Boy Is Mine. My two favorite artists got together to do a duet. I always feel like, me and Monica had something to do with that.
Definitely you did. You
I
changed the
always,
game.
I always say that. Like I always, take a little credit for that.
Why is there this kind of unspoken competition in particular? And I was talking to another female artist about this the other day. Why is there this kind of competition foisted upon female artists? Like there has to be some kind of drama.
I think the entire music industry is competitive. I mean, you got charts, you have positions on charts, you have music genres. I mean, everything is competitive, and I think it's just always like that. It's always been like that, and I think especially with when you say Monica and myself. I mean, that song was about a boy, and it was about us competing over a boy, and so naturally, people are going to put us against each other even more because of the topic of the song and what we're speaking about. So we kind of played into, the competitiveness of it. So,
Yeah, you owned
you
the
know,
narrative.
yeah. So that's just the way things go
Where are you at with the concept of trust?
in terms of trusting.
All of it. I mean, let's take a look at life. You have to have a huge amount of trust in an industry is going to have your best interests. Not always.
I don't trust the industry
Exactly.
at
So you
all.
learned that. Then you've got this opportunity to trust in your audience, and even some of them will get it wrong and pile on top. Then you have to trust relationships. That's never easy. And everyone goes through the ups and downs of that. So I wonder kind of how you look, what does the future feel like on that level in the work that you're doing?
I trust in me. I trust in God. I trust in my family, my team, and I trust in the work that I'm doing. As long as I'm honest in my work, that I feel good. I can't control everything else. I can only control, what I can control. And I trust that. And everything else I have to just let go and let God.
Brandy, it's been really fun talking with you.
You're a great person to talk to.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it. And in the future, I hope we get a chance to do it again. I know that this isn't something you do very often, but you can trust me. So we'll do it again, hopefully.